Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Well, it's a difficult day for Africa, especially in our sub-region here. I'm talking about the demise of President Deby of neighboring Chad. The 68-year-old, spent about, he spent 30 years in power, and it would have been 35 because an election held on the 11th of April has just been won by him, and there was jubilation. Of course, the opposition stayed away. There was jubilation, happiness and all of that. Instead of the president to, join his supporters in the jubilation, well, he took off for the front to go and address, an insurgency by rebels. And that is where we were told later by the Nigerian army that he was wounded, brought back to the capital, and then subsequently died. Okay, we'll look at this, and my guest this morning, well, first of them, because when you talk about Africa, one man can't do it, probably have a number of people. Sheyi Adeyemo, African Affairs Analyst. As always, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if people are wondering about that red patch, it's IWA, I-W-A, Inside Watch Africa. Thank you very much for coming on. We shall also be speaking with, we'll be joining with Foreign Affairs Analyst, Mr. Ademola Oshodi, and Mr. Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani, another public affairs analyst, will be joining with us. Now, there's so many aspects to the story here. But the most important one is that the president has passed. Marshal, he was recently, elevated to Marshal. His son, his 37-year-old son, is a four-star general. He used to command the Brigade of Guards, and he has been installed, he has been appointed by the army to rule for the next 18 months. So we'll see how all of that goes. But first of all, let me ask a question. Might say it's a simple one or silly one. Just what was the head of state of a modern African country doing in the war front, as we say? What was he looking for in the war front?
Okay, so there will be two sides to the argument. One will say that, he takes the fact that there's insurgency around him, takes it very seriously, and so as captain of the ship, he will not be one that will stay back and send the rest of the army or workers to the forefront. It will be one that would not just supervise from the rear, it will be one that will supervise even at the forefront and at the war front. Okay. And other people will say, no, it means he has not put sufficient structure in place, particularly when he has a lot of relatives of his child, and a host of them, fighting. So why would he necessitate the fact that he's been doing this for 30 years? In fact, it was the chief of Habre
before him. It's not as if he started this trend of being commander-in-chief and actually showing up at the war front to do battle, not ceremonially.
Yes.
Hassan Habre before him also had that habit.
Absolutely. Now, the truth of the matter is, so he was chief of army staff. In fact, he became security advisor to Habre. And one would wonder that I haven't done this for this long. Another reason to worry as Africans is the fact that are we not still repeating the way we do things to the extent that now that he has died, because we will eventually die, we would have a big gap that probably would have been properly filled if he had taken it upon himself to train and hand over to people whilst he was alive. Because I think the problem here is we would always wait and die until people will now starting all over again. And I think it's not right, because when we have an opportunity to learn and have all we have, we should learn how to hand it over to other people.
Okay, as I said at the top, we'll be joined by Mr. Ademola Oshodi and Mr. Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani. I believe those two gentlemen are with us. Yeah, in fact, I can see you both gentlemen. Good morning to you. There's Mr. Ademola Oshodi in the purple buba. And there you go. I can see the stripes for Mr. Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani. Morning to you, gentlemen.
Morning.
Okay. Well, let me start with you, Ademola, because we're going to come into the meat of the story. But first of all, you heard the question that I asked Sheyi. Just what exactly was the president doing in the forefront, on the front lines? in battle, not a ceremonial visit. What was he doing in that kind of a situation? Let me get your take.
Good morning, Yori, and my fellow discussants. My take on him being at the front line is basically quite moral boosting. I think his better judgment got the best of him. He probably felt he was invincible after winning his sixth election. I believe that all the information we've been given may not be accurate. I reserve judgment on the outcome of his death, but him going to the front could easily be just to galvanize his troops, see it firsthand, and also, his ego got the best of him. He's an old man, 68, and he may believe that he has what it takes to revitalize his youth, and believe he can advise the military and to defend his power and defend his country.
Okay. Okay, Demola, as you say, an old man of 68. Okay, let me switch over to you, Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani. Good morning to you again. This story is coming to us, that is what we know now about the way he passed, is coming to us directly from the army. The army tells us that he was wounded in action on the forefront. Now, apart from the whole question of what you think about the issue, I've heard from two people what a president, a commander-in-chief with that ceremonial rank will be doing actually on the forefront. In addition to that, how credible is the story that we have heard about how it all went down? Well, I believe that we're still having a few problems. Maybe we lost Mr. Hassan Abdulaziz Sani for a while. I refer to credibility there, and that's because immediately some things begin to throw themselves up. Number one, he's just won the election. The very day he should be celebrating and jubilating with his supporters, he takes off for the war for the front line. That has led people to say that they don't think he received enemy fire. They say this was probably someone very close to him. And if those, speculations are indeed, considered, then we're talking about a coup here by other means. Give me your thoughts on that whole notion, that whole idea.
I think I would want to be careful at this junction to make any submission on that area, because it's fresh. Like you rightly said earlier, we got it authoritatively from the army. And I think that is enough credible source. And I think it's probably safe to rely on that source of information and believe that that was the situation, because for whatever
it was enemy fire.
Yes, in other words, he was wounded. The army said he was wounded, and I think we should just leave it at that for now, because for whatever it's worth, if he was a coup, we will get to know eventually. But for me, for now, I think at this stage, let's just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to, I can understand it. Playing it properly and staying with what we have indeed been told.
Yeah.
What we can begin to deign to deduce, extreme caution should be applied there,
for now,
right?
Yes.
For now.
Yes.
Okay, let's leave that one to one side. The Constitution of Niger does prescribe how things are to go if this kind of an thing, if this kind of an issue happens. I beg your pardon, this kind of thing happens. That has happened in Chad.
Yeah.
If it were during the election, then the guy with the second highest votes, he would,
he would naturally, yes.
In the case where we have what we have,
Vice President,
the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Speaker of the House of the National Assembly, as it is addressed, should be taking over. No, the army has suspended the Constitution, has said that the late Deby's son will take over, supervise, is a provisional military council. and that elections will be conducted in 18 months. Now, we left the first part of it and said, let's be very careful. How about this aspect of it?
No, I think this is not something we should leave because we obviously don't want to. And let me quickly state this. Whenever I have an opportunity like this, I'm very, very deliberate in the things I say because we are speaking to Africa and we're speaking to the rest of the world. I think we should be careful as Africans not to come out across, to the rest of the world as people who do not know what they're doing. Because as it is, whatever we're suffering in insurgents and all of the things that is happening to us right now is a function of the fact that we have refused to be fair to ourselves. We have continued to do things in a way that for me is haphazard, in a way where we will just wake up in a day. Because for instance, he's been in office, he had to remove the limits of tenure in Chad. That in itself was not appropriate for him to have stayed this long. He was meant to have been in office 5 years tenure twice. He decided that he was going to remove the limit. Now, you have removed the limit. Now that there's an opportunity to show to the people that, okay, we can now have another opportunity to go on and a structure that he himself instituted. You understand? Because he was the one who put this in place. Why has it decided, or why have they decided to push that aside and then go on to this? For me, it's not something we should encourage. It's not something that should happen. And I think it should not happen anywhere in Africa. So I'm one that is not in support of what has just happened.
Indeed. Demola Oshodi, the president has extended his condolences, our president that is, has extended his condolences and has observed that we have lost a serious ally in the fight against insurgency and terrorism, especially as Chad was something of a buffer there. Give me your thoughts on continuing now after Deby, especially as it relates to security in the region. Oh, I understand that Mr. Demola Oshodi too, the network goblins are at work. If you'd like to take that question.
Absolutely.
Because France has referred to him as an important ally that has been lost. To us, an important ally as well, to the extent that both of us were, united on this fight against terrorism, although he had made some controversial statements following an operation that he led once, and he had said some things that rubbed Nigerians the wrong way. But he since met with the president,
and that
has been sorted out. So what do you think it is now going to look like after him, given the role that Niger, especially led by him,
Chad.
Yes, Chad. And led by Chad.
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, a big gap has been created. It's a huge gap because amongst the rest of the president or heads of state, he is the one that has stood out the most as one that has taken this headlong. But as a person, I believe it's also an opportunity to learn, because it is obvious, and everybody have said it, that this war cannot only be won at the war front. That there's a need for us to be more, to go into the social aspect, to make sure that our people, because at the end of the day, most often, and in all of this region, the Sahel region, all of the things that have happened in Mali, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Mauritius, and the rest of them, is on the fact that our people are hungry, our people are angry, our people have apathy, and whoever is coming in, take advantage of the fact that there is a problem within the house. And the Yoruba people will say most of the time it is when there is a line or gap in the wall, that is when the lizard is able to enter. So I think it's an opportunity to learn and do more. And I mean the whole of us, Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, Sudan, all of us in that Sahel region, to say to ourselves, why are we having this problem reoccurring? Because you see, him as rely very, very strongly, and we need to always put that in, on France, on their support. But it is obvious that 8 years down the line, they've not made too much progress. So they keep, doing that, and at the end of the day, it seems like the war is being won, but the war is not. That is why he went and was shot. So truth of the matter is, there is an infighting. The moment we allow what happened in Libya happen, they're on top of us. And they decided to come down into that region because we, the Sahel region is dividing the north and the south. We're in the middle as well. We are the ones that are taking all the fallouts of what happened in Libya. And we need to understand that the best way of security is for your people to be satisfied with you so that you don't have a situation where the war is open for incursions.
It's in the past tense now, but it was said that President Deby was indeed, open to, sort of had opened to discussions now with rebel. Let's talk about it. One doesn't know whether his son is going to continue that. In fact, it remains to be seen how well his son holds down the army. But he's a man of great military experience himself. So all of that is as it is. But there still is. It's a very tumultuous country because President Deby won the last election, looking at 80% of the vote, but then the opposition entirely abandoned the affair. Please just go ahead and do what you want because this election is not doable. It's not fair. So that's what we have with there. And now this has happened. The military, the problem with the military is that why has the military behaved in this way? Because there is a constitution. And this has led to, you said at the beginning, why do we Africans appear to do this kind of thing as if we don't know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Well, of course, people are saying that the problem with soldiers is that once they taste power, they don't want to give it back. It's a problem. You can't take it back from them.
It is not a function of being a soldier. It's a function of being a human being. Anytime you give power to anybody, and that's why they said, in law that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you give power to anyone.
Okay, I'm hearing that one of our guests might be back. There are two of them, Ademola Oshodi and Hassan Abdulaziz Sani. Ademola Oshodi, I understand that you're back. Okay, so once again, great to have you back. Looking at what is going to be like for Nigeria now, and our engagement with Boko Haram, now that he is not on the scene anymore, do you think we will still have that buffer effect that he provided when he was there? Because he wasn't anything if he wasn't totally committed to engaging Boko Haram militarily and ISWAP and all of those people.
Well, basically, Deby is Marshal Deby was the cornerstone for the fight against Islamic and other extremists in the Sahel region of West Africa and even Central Africa. If France used him in Mali, France used him in the Central African Republic. There were Chadian soldiers there. And of course, the Nigerian government needed his assistance in fighting Boko Haram in Borno State and around that area. So he is pivotal. His loss will be tremendously felt in Africa and in the West. American soldiers train in Chad. So the issue of his existence and his staying in power was realpolitik. He was a necessary evil. He provided security as much as possible in West Africa. We needed him. Him hampering or hindering democratic development is definitely, appalling, and it's bad.
Do you think we can look forward to a continuation of his attitude to security in his son and the army, which unfortunately is the center of power in Chad?
Well, it's been tried and tested, and it's worked in many parts of Africa. It worked in Togo. It worked in Congo, where the son takes over from the father, and it's worked in other parts of Africa. Maybe skipping one leader, Kabilas in Congo. It's a familiar feature in Africa. It's not acceptable, but it works in some places. But I think France and the United States may not even care a hoot. They need stability in West Africa. It's pivotal for their own security in their own country. The training ground for jihadists in West Africa and the threatening of French investments in Mali, in Niger, across the region is very, very important to them. America does not want Al Qaeda having a foothold in West Africa. They already have some sort of presence in East Africa. Well, Al Shabaab and in some parts, and in West Africa, with Mali and above, with Al Qaeda in the Maghreb. But it's important to them, and they will sacrifice whatever democratic development or institution we have in Africa to ensure that exists. And to be honest, it's very, very important for Nigeria to have stability in Chad. Chad uses military diplomacy for its advantage. Other countries uses money, other countries uses different things, oil. They use military diplomacy. They provide the stability we all yearn for in Africa. Nigeria is, having issues with banditry, with issues with Boko Haram and the Islamic State, I think West Africa, Al Qaeda in West Africa, or whatever it's called, in northeast Nigeria. So it's important that they have stability there. Without stability, you can't do anything. There's no democracy, there's no farming, there's no education. So that is the start. That is the start. So Chad and Deby provided that, at least tried to provide that.
Okay.
They sacrificed the development. The military is very strong, one of the best in West Africa and in Africa.
Let me stay with you,
Well
let me stay with you on this point that you are making. Chad, has been rocked by unrests, rebels, and this has been going on for quite a long time. In fact, the man Deby himself was no stranger to near escapes. He's been referred to as the proverbial cat with 9 lives. Now, what is the issue in Chad that has brought about this situation where there are those who are saying that, quite frankly, he had to use other devices to remain in power? There got to a time there was fatigue on the streets. People that have been speaking within Chad itself are saying that they are quite confused about the facts as have been presented to them in terms of what really went down. What is the bone of contention? What is the problem? Let me just throw in for you. Sorry, sir. Let me just throw in that there also appear to be on the streets complaints about the way Chad's oil revenue is being managed.
Yes, they do pump 127,000 barrels of oil per day, the 7th largest oil producer in Africa. So it's quite significant. Oil makes up about 60% of their revenue. After that comes cotton, livestock, and other commodities and farming. But yes, it's the problem with Chad is really poverty. It's the third least developed country, I believe, in Africa, if not just the world. I think it's in Africa. It's got a 38% literacy rate, so it's quite a it's got a very weak institution. It's a very weak institutional weakness there that provides a lot of room for instability, for rioting, for rebellion. It's a very big country too. So how do you take care of this big mass of land that is mainly desert? And we have weak Libya on top, that arms flow in, refugees go out. You have Mali not too far off. You have Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria. So they're fighting everybody. And there's also Central African Republic not too far away. So Deby, as evil as it is for democratic norms, was extremely essential for that stability. Nigerian government will surely miss him. I want to believe, the analysts, the democratic people and institutions that promote democracy will not miss his absence. They will believe that this is a time for for Chad to take a different step and have a different person in charge. Unfortunately, they brought his 37-year-old son with out of nowhere. I think he was a military advisor or military. He had a military position, basically usurping all the people in place. The Speaker of the House and everything. So just because they wanted that stability, and I can bet you, Uncle Yori, that France and United States will not, dwell too much on that. They will say the platitudes about ensuring, democracy is restored and it's done as soon as possible for civilian rule. But it really, their own security is part and parcel of, Chad.
Yeah.
They need Al Qaeda and all this, Islamists removed from West Africa. They don't want another Afghanistan or Somalia festering there. That would affect Western investment and also, provide terrorists to go to Europe, etc.
Okay.
Chad is an essential component, really, for all this.
I'll be coming back to you. But Sheikh, everything, as Demola is saying there, and I think you also alluded to, everybody wants a stable Chad. Now the military are there. We've said let us be very, very careful about words like coup. So the military is there. They said there is no trouble. We have appointed a provisional leader. He will be there for 18 months. So there's no trouble. Seen in a certain way. There's no trouble. The question, of course, is that when you have a situation like this, they've given 18 months. Can you be sure that in 18 months, that Chad and indeed the region can plan on a return to full-fledged democracy in 18 months, as has been said, and that his son, that is the late president's son, will continue the policies that everybody is now talking about in relation to Chad and his father?
So that's not traditional of us as a people. Whenever we grab onto power as Africans, we would never return it. Deby himself,
except in the case of Nigeria.
When Deby...
Except in the case of Nigeria. Go on, say it. Say it. We did it.
Okay.
We did it.
All right.
Please continue.
I agree.
I know you don't want to say much more on that.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, what we just need to be careful about is when Deby had a problem with Abiy, he had to go to Sudan. And it was from Sudan that he came in with the support of Gaddafi to take over government from Abiy, who he was his security advisor. And he stayed on for this long. So, because...
You're talking about Hissène Habré?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, if Deby had, sort of put himself together, I think they call themselves patriotic movements, whatever, and they came in and took over from Abiy, and it's been on for 30 years. So if the son claims it's going to be there for 18 months, are we sure that it's going to be there for 18 months? That's the question. So my concern is we need to deal with ourselves fairly and make sure that whenever we do things, we do it recognizing that it's not just about, oh, I am president, oh, I am doing this. There are a lot of things. Apart from internal problem, it is obvious that you also need to deal with external problems as well, as we are having right now.
But external and internal, and both of them are quite important. Demola was telling us over there that he thinks one of the main problems of that country is the poverty.
Who created the poverty? So he said that...
So in terms of development, how much was done in the 30 years he's been there to alleviate that situation?
Because you see, what you keep having is disgruntled people. And they keep going and they start up a small militia. And they start up another small militia. And they start up... So if you don't deal with those things, what you keep doing, like we're having in Nigeria right now, so it was IPOR, now we have the Yoruba Oduduwa, and you keep having, just like that, you have Delta, Niger Delta, and the moment you have all of those brewing on the inside, it is easy for those who want to come from outside to leverage on that.
Okay. Mazi Okoroafo, good morning, sir.
Good morning. The government are guests in the studio and the one on Skype.
Yes.
Honestly, may the soul of Deby rest in peace with the Lord. Amen. You see, the Chadians, the colonial masters are not helping matters. Look at all the African oil-producing countries, what is happening. Now, we African leaders have to learn a lesson from what happened in Chad. Agree that it is what I've been trying all its possible best to do what? To bring peace and tranquility within the African region, the Sahara. But the question is this: no tribe, no religion, no family has the monopoly of power or leadership. Because if it is just after completion of the tenure and left the office and conduct a free and fair and transparent election, this thing could have happened. But the thing is this: you ask yourself, now, because a whole country has been just put in a state of confusion. Is it a monarchy? Their father, you now step into the gun because you are in the military. It is not healthy for African politics, because democracy is what we want in Africa. We don't want anything military. Now look at what happened in Mali. Look at what is happening now in Tanzania. Very soon Tanzania will blow off. The Tanzania president died because of only God knows. Now the woman came in. Now you see how the woman are what they are facing there now. You come back to Niger. Niger, a particular tribe has taken up the government. Now, instead of the president to conduct free and fair election, he set the goalpost. Now, very soon now, we pray that the statue will not go back to Niger. If you go back to Niger, we ask ourselves, the refugees that were coming out from those countries, where are they going to? Is it not Nigeria? We have to pray, because if you look at Jesus Christ, the disciples said, teach us how to pray. Say, give us this day our daily bread. Now, give us this day African country to continue praying daily, so that the young man in charge will do what? Hand over the government to the next person to take over the government, because what we want is democracy, irrespective of whatever they may call it that happened. Go back to democracy, not monarchy or military. We don't want military. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day in Lagos.
Thank you, Mazi, for calling in. And Demola, back to you. The way Chad has gone down now, by which I mean the unfortunate death of the president, at least he was the president, at least he was elected. And this relates to what Mazi Okuraf was just saying, that we, meaning most Africans, most ordinary Africans, don't want military rule. We want democratic rule, whatever way it is. Were you surprised that following the passing of Deby, the military has stepped in this way, making people bring out the word coup again by other means, considering that it was a democracy before then? Were you surprised? Because we used to say, never again, no more coups in Africa, nobody's going to tolerate it. That was the concept we have. So are you surprised about this, this outcome here?
I'm not surprised. Chad has weak institutions. Where there's weak institutions and poverty, there's a propensity for coups. There's a propensity for riots. There's a propensity for banditry. There's, for so many things. So when the country is not stable, then institutions like free press, democratic institution, the courts, there's issues of unemployment, and so empowerment, literacy. There's definitely a risk to society. That's not a problem. That's definitely. But what we should be looking at now is what can take Chad forward. We have this young man, 37-year-old man, General Hamad Deby, Idris Deby's son, as the president. What the international organizations should do right now is find a development plan, economic development plan for Chad. It's a country of 17 million. There's a lot of poverty there. I don't think 17 million people finding food for 17 million people by the Americans or the French would not be too difficult. Give them an economic plan, build some schools for them, hospitals, and ensure that the people have some sort of livelihood and things to look forward to. That's number one. Number two, they should have a professional army. They should keep training the army. The army is quite professional compared to West African and African standard. But they should ensure there's issues of accountability in the army. They should be more representative. There should be more people from different tribes, ethnic group in Chad in the army, not just the Zagawa ethnic group that Deby comes from.
But some commentators have observed, Demola, that the army, the council, the army council as it stands here, the army seem to get that right. It's quite diverse people within Chad, have been, spread around. So
it's mainly the hierarchy is made up of Deby's people, the Zagawa people, the Zagawa tribe. They dominated the hierarchy. It's prevalent everywhere in Africa. Everywhere in Africa, wherever the leader comes from, it's the hierarchy of the military is from its tribe. It's a given.
Oh,
and then the third thing they should do is civil society. They should build up civil society. They should involve more the traditional and religious leaders in Chad. Ensure that they have a stake and they can talk to people and move the country forward.
Okay. One moment, please. We can now link up with Hassan Abdulaziz Sani on phone. We were having a problem with the feed for the video link. So thank you for still joining us, albeit audio only now. Good morning, Alhaji Hassan Sani.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yori. And good morning, Nigeria.
Indeed. So really, are you surprised at what happened? That is especially the way that Chad did not take the constitutional route, which it has on its books. The Constitution says that in the event that a thing like this happens, this is how it shall go. The Speaker of the Assembly shall indeed be the President. Shall take over while the elections are being arranged. Are you surprised at how the whole thing has gone? Are you surprised at how the army has sort of arranged a continuation after Deby instead of going by the Constitution?
Instead of going by?
Instead of going by what the Constitution says, which is that the Speaker in Chad should be the person that will now step in. That has not been followed.
Mr. Yori, desperate situation requires desperate actions. We should remember that democracy is a game of possible. We should allow that to be very, very clear in our mindsets. The situation now in Chad or in Sahel region requires a desperate action, not about democracy. How do we restore law and order in the Sahel region should be our priority and should be the utmost priority of people of Chad for now. This is a president that was killed as a result of wounds he sustained at the war front. And what do you expect? Do you expect them to now start talking about democracy or about the Constitution? The most important thing is to restore law and order first. When you restore law and order, you cannot talk of democracy because democracy is a game of possible.
But Alhaji Sani, there was no report of a breakdown of law and order unless this was a preventative move.
You could remember that the president was killed at the northern border with Libya by the rebel group. And the rebel group are very, very powerful, and they made their own stand known. They said, Chad is not a monarchy. I'm quoting the rebels verbatim to you now. So that this dynastic approach of father to son should not be the order of the day. That is the stand of the rebel group that are out to oust the regime of Idris Deby Itno.
Okay.
And for now, the most important thing now is to restore law and order first.
Okay. All right. I hear you. I'll be back. Alhaji Sani, I'll be right back to you. Let me bring what you say. Let me bring it to studio. And Sheyi, as Alhaji Sani has explained it, I'm trying to understand it because there wasn't a breakdown of law and order per se, but the unfortunate battle injury happened, and that was why, unless they were being preventive, there wasn't a breakdown of law and order. But Alhaji Sani also very crucially added that the rebels over, in the north, especially close to the border with Libya, where this whole thing happened, they're not paying any. They paid very little attention. This whole matter of the father to son kind of a transition. Now, my question is, if the right thing had been done, that is to say, the constitution had been followed, wouldn't the person in charge still have the support of the army and be able to continue the policy of Deby, which is not allow them 1 inch?
I was going to ask that question myself, because I really don't understand why we need military as head of state to be able to have stability. I mean, like Demola said, we have very, very weak institutions, not just in Chad, but all over Africa. And so each time the headmaster needs to come and go to the classroom to teach the students. And you're wondering, really, I mean, what is the role of the teacher if the principal or the vice chancellor will always have to come to class to teach students? So for me, it's important. And for me, I mean, it's dead. We need to move forward. We need to learn lessons. This has happened in Chad. It could happen anywhere. What are the right things to do? Why is this happening? It's because they always have allies on the inside. And why do they have allies? Because they are militias, those who are disgruntled on the inside. So what can be done to ensure that we are peace, or we fairly deal with those people so that we don't start? Because most often the problem really is always from the inside.
Indeed.
So yes, it comes from Libya and all of that, but they have to work with people on the inside.
Demola, the idea put forward by Alhaji Sani that, look, desperate situations require desperate measures. In medicine, you say a desperate ailment requires a desperate cure. What do you think about the notion of Alhaji Sani that this is hardly the time to be thinking about democracy and all of that kind of a thing? Because of this notion of desperate situations require desperate cures, we've got to, stabilize the situation first. What do you think, especially as it relates to the concept of democracy that we're trying to grow in Africa?
Thank you. I do agree with what Alhaji said, but we need to keep an eye on democracy. We cannot lose focus on it. But things are really dire in Chad and in parts of West Africa and Africa. It's a matter of insecurity. It is really dire. If you do not have peace, tranquility, you don't have anything. That is the number one priority of a government. People must be safe. They must be able to build something: education, health care, work. If they don't have security, they will. There's no the state. The state itself is under jeopardy. So we need to keep that in mind. But democracy.
Demola, does that speak to the point you made earlier that there are so many weak institutions in Chad that had the constitutional thing happened and you have the Speaker of the House stepping in as president, it would all have gone wrong? The army wouldn't. What do you think?
Well, the thing is, letting Deby win 6 elections itself is the beginning of the end. If you allow him to keep trotting on democratic rights and the rights of the voters and not encouraging institutions because you want to safeguard your security, whether in France or America or in Nigeria or Mali or Central African Republic. These are the countries that Chad and Niger, that Chadian soldiers have been really assisting. If you want to keep that aside and ensuring that this guy keeps winning election, it's 80%. I mean, who wins 80% after 6 years, 6 terms in power? That's after 30 years. Like, is it that popular? Is the country that buoyant? That I mean, I don't know where in this world that a leader has been there for 30 years and is so popular, he wins 80% of the election. Well, I guess if the other parties do not engage in the electoral process, if parties boycott elections, maybe he can get 80 or 90%.
Okay, I take the point you're making, Demola.
But I believe,
I take the point you're making. Crossing over to Alhaji Sonny now on the phone. Alhaji, you still with us?
Yes, yes,
so
I'm here.
Could you give me your thoughts, please? Now that we have the army apparently firmly in power, they've installed the son of the late president. You said earlier, tellingly, that a desperate situation requires desperate measures. Do you see the army playing by the rules and indeed staying there for 18 months, most of which will be towards organizing free, fair, and credible elections? Can we work on that in Africa?
Look, Mr. Yori, I would like you to understand one thing. That Chad, we need to take into cognizance the history of Chad before we can begin to talk or to make our own conclusions or to draw our own conclusions. The Chad is a country swamped in one crisis or the other right from independence in 11th of August 1960 to date. Remember, the first president of Chad was Mr. Francois Tombolbali from the southern Chad. And he was ousted out by the rebel groups, Solidarity Front, National Solidarity Front, led by Gokoni Wadaye. And Gokoni Wadaye was later ousted by Hussein Habre. And it is Deby you are talking about. Joined the rebel force of Hussein Habre and became the chief of army staff of Hussein Habre. Before he now ran away to southern Sudan, Darfur, to form his own group and fought the rebel group, the government of Hussein Habre, and became the president of Chad. So the only activist we can talk about that became the president in post-colonial Chad is from Balbali. And then you can imagine from 1960, from 1975 to date, one rebel group coming into power after the other. And you are not talking of democracy. Look,
I take your point, Alhaji. I take your point, especially giving us that historical perspective. I take your point, and I want to thank you very much because we're running short on time, and we do want to leave a little room to see if one or two viewers wanted to call in. But I saw that you were in agreement to a lot of that because, especially, sorry, well, I'm happy. Yeah. You disagree?
Yes,
that it hasn't that Chad. What Alhaji Sonny sought to
it's been there. Rebel after rebel after rebel.
It's hardly
so if you
come to understand what a democracy really is.
No, so if you put another rebel person there, then you have another rebel. 30 years, you will never get it settled. What we're saying is there's a lesson to be learned. There's a problem on ground. We have continued to have people come in by force. We need to say to ourselves, because at the end of the day, the reason why this is continuing is because there's people are disgruntled.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Demola, I don't know would you think that that's a fitting place to sort of hang it this time? No doubt we're going to hear a lot more about this particular subject in the coming, even later on today and in the coming days. But governance seems to be what has been lacking in Chad. Would you go as far as that?
Poverty, yes, that's a big part of it. It's not everything, but it's a big part of it. Okay. Without the French, Deby would not have been president for 30 years. That's a fact. They helped him in 2003, I think, and then they helped him in 2018, I believe. So it's not just that. So if there's a change in government, you know, democratically, hopefully, or by other means, violently, there's a change. There's more opportunity for a different point of view, more opportunity for more representative, and there's a growth. So having one man in 30 years there because it suits your interest, security interest, does not help the country. And things like this would happen. He's dead now, there's a vacuum, and everybody's worried.
Fine, Lemona, thank you very much. I thought I was going to end here, but Paul in Abia State has called in. I can squeeze it in. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Paul. Go ahead, please.
How are you?
Very well.
How is everything?
Go ahead, please. We're very well here.
I want to say that our security matters has gone out of hand. Our federal government should do something about security.
We're talking about Chad. We're talking about Chad. Thank you very much for calling. Thank you very much for calling, Chad. Thank you very much for calling, Paul. You must have missed it. Our subject of conversation was the passing of President Deby in Chad and the effect that this will have on. So I just want to use the opportunity to thank you very much, Mr. Demola Oshodi, African Affairs Analyst, for taking part in the program. And Alhaji Abdul Aziz Sonny, thank you very much as well for your contributions as well to the subject. And indeed, not last but certainly not the least, I give you my thanks as well.
Thank you so
for
much,
coming on and helping us understand this, talking about Mr. Sheyi Adeyemo, African Affairs Analyst. These are the people that really would have come on today to help us check this thing out. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.